Welcome to Think Like a Dog podcast, where we explore dog behavior and psychology-based training to help your dog achieve their full potential. All right, welcome back to Think Like a Dog podcast. And today we are here with Connor. He's joining us for this podcast. And we're going to talk about things people say to dog trainers. So we have two dog trainers here today that's going to tell us exactly what that is. Because I probably said some things before, right? That you were like, wait a minute. No, but I do say things to you. That
all the time. You did literally right before we pressed record about we'll just pick up the little dog and then it won't be an issue. And I'm like, okay, we're going to add that to the list. But yeah, these are just like common things that we hear probably, on a daily basis about that tend to lead into a lot of the issues that we work with. I think, out of everything that I hear the most, it's they're my baby or they're protecting me. And I hear that on a day-to-day basis. I think they're being protective of me thing, I hear a lot more, especially we see a lot of reactivity cases. And I'm a really big fan of changing the way that we say things and describe things, because I think that it directly affects how we deal with that behavior. Because if I don't know, if Connor is being protective of me, part of that is like, oh, Connor likes me, he cares about me, we're friends, right? And then the other side of it makes me not want to talk to him about it, right? If he's just being protective of me. But on the other side of it, what it actually is a lot of the time with dogs is they're claiming you, right? And that is not necessarily something that most people either think about or want their dog to do. And so it kind of forces people to address it a little bit more. And that is the reality of the situation. Your dog isn't protecting you. You're not in danger. Unless you're in danger, your dog is not protecting you. Kind
of like Millie said, a lot of the way we talk about our dogs is just like she said, directly involved with what we do with our dogs. And just because we are so big on the psychology part of it, I think that plays an enormous role in just the progress of the dog, the progress of the human, and really just being on the same page. If we're looking at the same issues two completely opposite ways, there's a limited routes to continue onwards with that. So it's really important for us to make sure we're on the same page.
Well, and that's a super good point too, because that's why we don't give advice over phone consults, because how you describe something might not be how we think of it, right? And also how you describe something, especially when we're looking at you and your dog and you're telling us, oh, well, they're my baby or they're just being protective of me. That gives us a really good insight into your relationship in general, because we see your dog claiming you and you're kind of already making, quote unquote excuses for them, and trying to make this behavior a little bit more okay.
I think in life in general, we always have to get a different perspective, because our perspective sometimes can be biased and we're looking at it through our eyes and dealing with it in a way that only we see. And when I first reached out to you guys, I was seeing my problem differently than what it really was. So when I filled out that online form and ended up connecting with Mirror Image, I said, my dog Bubbles had food reactivity. That was my whole idea behind it. I said, he's reactive to food. That's what it is. When we first worked through this, and I talked about this in a previous episode, that I reached out to various trainers, and my issue was this, food reactivity, because the first fight was what I thought was about food. And everybody would say, okay, 10 sessions, 6 sessions, this is what we're going to do. And it would be like, okay, this is your problem. We're going to fix it with 10 sessions. Then when I talked to you guys, you said, well, let's do one first and see why that is. You just listened to me. You didn't agree that was the problem. You didn't say, yes, you're right. It does. You just listened and you said, okay, I'll see you in the first session and we'll see about that.
Yep.
And after we worked through that, it's a completely different.
Oh yeah. It has nothing to do with food.
Nothing to do with food whatsoever. So it's different perspectives, especially when dealing with a dog that you really have to get someone professional that reads into their body language, that takes into consideration what they are, their instincts. That's when you're going to get to the root of the problem.
And don't get me wrong, I'm very aware that the owners that walk into the center they know their dogs, right? So when they say they're protective of me or they're super smart or they're really sweet, because I have a whole list of things that I hear all the time. And a lot of those are sort of not making excuses, but trying to get me to understand that the dog is not vicious, right? Or that the dog has good in them, which we tell people all the time, you don't have to convince us to like your dog. We like your dog already. But the problem is that when people come in, they have this idea of who their dog is, but they're coming to me because they're unable to see the bigger picture. I think I run into a lot of issues when I go, okay, yes, your dog is really sweet, or, yes, this might be food reactivity. This might be a little bit of protecting, claiming, whatever it is. But I actually think it's more so this opposite thing. And then I get pushback because people think, okay, I know my dog, but if we're having these issues, then how well are we actually communicating, right? How well are you being heard, and how well are you understanding the other side of it? So I think, the protecting one, I hear that in probably 75% of my sessions, because I think it's nice for people to believe that their dog is being protective over them. And it's just most of the time not the case.
How much a situation plays into the dog's behavior, it is very apparent when things like that happen, and we're viewing the same exact thing two different ways because, there's no way to bounce ideas off of each other and, hey, is this correct or is this not correct?
Right. I mean, that's like when I go into a session and I have that pushback from a client and, they're telling me, okay, well, I don't know. I can't think of a good example, but if I get that pushback, then I'll go, okay, well, maybe you do know better about this because I don't live with you. I don't live with your dog, but at the same time, I do know dogs, right? And you're here because you want the advice of a dog trainer or somebody who lives their life day in and day out working with dogs with this specific issue too. So there has to be like kind of a little bit of an open mind on both ends. I'm never going to go into a session or especially a phone consult and you tell me it's food reactivity and then I go, here's, pay for 10 sessions ever. That's just, I have to see what it is first. But at the same time, when I tell you, hey, this might be a different issue, you can't be like, no, that's not it. Like, let's play around with it together. But yeah, I mean, the protectiveness and then how many times do you get like, that's my baby or this is my best friend kind of thing.
All the time.
The problem, I'm sorry. Do you want to say about how Poochie is your baby?
Hey, I'm guilty in a lot of these things too. I feel it, but I think too, in a lot of different ways, you have to recognize, like I'm at a point now because of the little dogs, I know what I put myself into, like for not giving them as much structure as they need, for not really following through with, the training that we've talked about with the little dogs. And I think as an owner, you have to say, stop with, he's so sweet. He's just, it's only when, or he's great, but only if this doesn't happen.
Yes.
It's like, hey, this is the issue. Either you're going to realize that and say, okay, I'm going to work through that, or you're just going to have to accept it and,
I think a lot of it is guilt, right? Because I mean, I get the, he's so sweet, he just lunges at people, or he's so sweet, he just tries to eat every dog he sees. And I think it's people wanting me to know that they do have good in them, right? Or that, this dog is loved, or that there are times where this dog is truly just a good dog. And also because they do feel that guilt of, we have this extreme issue, so I feel like I need to overcompensate and explain how good this dog really is, or why else would I have them? But you don't, like I said, you don't have to convince us. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times somebody is telling me, my dog is so sweet while that dog is growling and trying to lunge at me. And I'm like, I get it. I believe that your dog is sweet, but he's sweet in a very like a specific set of circumstances that we are not in right now.
And I think I was always also thinking about this too. And a lot of people ask, oh, Rusty's not adopted yet? Like, what's going on? Rusty's our best chance dog. He's been with us for a little bit, but we don't sugarcoat his behavior. Mm-hmm. Like, we tell you what he needs. It's not that we haven't had people interested in this dog, because we did, but people want us to say, oh, he just needs a couch to cuddle on. He's the cuddliest dog. Because I read adoption bios all the time from dogs, that are going up for adoption or need a home. And there's just so many red flags. And I send it to Millie, and Millie kind of says, hey, red flag, red flag, red flag.
I circle things.
And she's like, hey, this is not what it really is. Like a dog just wanting to cuddle all day on the couch, dog being protective over you, dog, all these different things.
People will go even as far as to say they'll be your shadow. And I'm like, oh. No. Okay. So now we have, you're attempting to make separation anxiety a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Rusty, he's come a long, long way. This dog, we say he's very smart. He is. We really just describe his personality. And instead of saying he wants to be your shadow, or he wants to be involved in everything or whatever, we say this is the guidance he's going to need so he doesn't develop any bad behaviors. Can you offer that to him? And that has come down to the last question that I ask everybody that's been interested in him is, can you offer the guidance? Can you offer the structure? And if they don't want to put in the work, then that ends the conversation right there. But sugarcoating your dog's bad behavior, that's what leads to more bad behavior.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make us think that you care about your dog less. Like, we know that, we know that your dog is loved. We know that they are, in fact, a lot of people say that's like another child, or like my children, I don't have children, or this is my best friend, but they allow their dog. This is a conversation I have a lot. Your dog can be your baby all day long, but you would not let your child get away with half the things that you let your dog get away with. I think if people thought about their dog as a relationship, like their interactions with their dog as a relationship-based kind of thing, I want you to think, okay, well, what happens if you're walking along the street with your partner, and every single guy that looks at you, your husband pops off on? Like that's leash reactivity. If that's not a relationship-based issue, I don't know what is. You wouldn't take that from another person. What happens if you're in a relationship and that person follows you to the bathroom and follows you all over the house and screams when you're not home and destroys things when he doesn't have access to you? That is a toxic, abusive relationship. You would not take that. What happens if your child sits on your lap while you're working and you're on your laptop and just kind of jumps on you? That doesn't mean your child loves you. That means your child is rude with your space.
You kind of said this where it's not even that they're trying, like our clients are trying to prove to us that they have a good dog. I feel a lot of it comes from a place of like, it's not that I don't care. Right. And
exactly.
It's not like whether you are or not, it's how you're doing that. And that's why you're paying money to come learn. So you don't have to explain that to me, but you do need to be open-minded about, hey, maybe take this change,
Absolutely.
This is actually the love that your dog is asking for, but just in their language as opposed to in ours.
Yeah, I've told that to a lot of clients. Of nobody walks in those doors without, with a lack of love for their dog, and there's never a lack of love from their dog either. It's 99% of the issues are a lack of respect, a lack of trust, and those are really big things. I think, if we say this is my baby, if we say this is my best friend, if we say he's being protective, all of those things, we are missing the point, right? You don't have to make this a good thing for me, like you've probably been trying to do for yourself for a long time before you ever decided to do training. We can help you, right? Like let's actually make this a relationship that you're proud of and you don't have to make excuses about.
Getting to the point where you're not excusing the bad behaviors, you can make mental notes and say, hey, I'm going to have to work through that. I'm going to have to find a solution to that. And it helps so much because now you're going to realize my dog is not the dog I thought he was. Like he's more anxious than a happy-go-lucky dog.
Yeah. Maybe a lot of it comes from like people not wanting to admit, okay, this is an issue. This is an issue. This is an issue. Instead they go, they kind of come into a session, at least from our perspective, right? Because I can't give it to you from the owner perspective because I am a trainer, but they come into it almost ashamed, like they're going to get in trouble, like, or especially in that first session, like, I know it's me. And then they just basically sit there like, I'm going to beat them up or something, like the owner, not the dog. And the dog's probably lunging at me. But it's one of those things where I'm like, you don't get points off by coming in and saying, okay, he does this. And I know that that's a problem. I want to solve this. I want to make him, feel more supported here. Our favorite clients are clients that came in and they just laid it all out there, right? right? They just gave it all, like, we have all of these issues. I am not ashamed of anything. I will tell you like problem after problem after problem, rather than I say, okay, that might be an issue. And then there's pushback here. And then there's kind of a fight there.
I want to go through some of the stuff. That
Are you laughing at? Okay.
No, because
I'm
it's
gonna
really
go ahead
good.
and say that these are all, I took the notes for this because these are common themes that I get in my sessions.
So this one is pretty good because we can go into that. Because even in previous videos that we've posted, people said same thing. I don't care if he walks ahead of me. I just don't want him to bark at other dogs. Mm-hmm. So, I want to go into that one a little bit more because we just did an episode on structured walks, and some people say, well, that doesn't really make a big, that doesn't really matter as long as the dog's not pulling, as long as the dog is, this and that. When your dog walks ahead of you, that means
they're leading, just like if a human or the line leader in kindergarten walked ahead of you. Leading is in the name. I mean, the leader makes the decisions. That's the person responsible for the safety of the followers in general, right? That's the person responsible. I think you cannot cherry pick this. You cannot say, okay, I want to fix this, but I don't want to fix this. I like my relationship here, right? I mean, that I'm going to just make TikTok so angry with this, which is fine. But that's the same thing as saying, okay, well, I don't want to crate train my dog. I want my dog to do whatever they want in the house because they're totally fine in the house. There's no issues there. I just want them to not eat people when they walk in. You can't do that without it being suppression to the dog, right? You can do that through lots of heavy corrections. You can do that through like a ton of giant Band-Aids on it with treats and rewards and things like that. But if you really want your dog to truly not feel the need to eat people that walk through your door, right? Then you've got to solve the furniture. Then you've got to crate train. You've got to have them walking next to you. Those things, it's not fair to the dog to just say, okay, they can't do this, but I want them to be able to do whatever they want in the house. Mm-hmm. We think that we're being fair to them in those moments, but we're being severely unfair and very confusing to them in those moments.
Yeah, and I feel like it goes back to the consistency of just day-to-day routine when we say structure. And we talked about this last episode where it's not necessarily the time of day and mm-hmm. like the same routine each day. It's the consistency is who's following, who's leading, and that information that you're giving to relay that's the consistency we talk about. But the it's never going to be heard that way from the dog if you're not looking at it from a bigger picture point of view.
I really think it makes such a big difference that you guys always tell your clients, if you can't follow through with what we teach you here, you do it at home, don't bring them to day camp. And that was big for me because at one point, I really wanted our little dogs to start day camp, and I really did. But I have various people involved in their day-to-day, which is Ozzy, my mom, my dad, my brother. And until I can get everybody on the same page of we are going to have to go through these periods of crying, of not wanting to do certain things. You're going to have to correct these things. Until we all get in the same page, I don't want to put them in that confusing situation,
Exactly. Because it's not fair to them.
Yeah.
That's the point. I mean, that's where a lot of people think that it's like a punishment. Like we go, okay, well, if you're not going to do it at home, you don't get to come to day camp. Yes, on one hand, it is a privilege, right? We want people to not look at day camp as like where we train your dog for you. But the bigger issue is that it's not fair to the dog if you are not doing those things at home.
And it needs to be communicated to everybody involved in that dog's day to day. How will it be if I'm the one telling them off the couch, but then somebody else is inviting them to the couch, or I'm putting them in the crate and then somebody else goes and takes them out of the crate? Or if, we all need to be in the same page, because sending them to a trainer, sending them to a boarding, that's not going to fix their issues. Nobody can fix your dog for you. You need to be able to work with that dog day in and day out and give them different information to be able to change that dog. I've had so many different conversations with people that want us to rescue a dog. And when I tell them the things they have to do to help this dog, it's immediately like, never mind, the dog's fine. We're just going to live with it this way. But you're going to have to accept the fact that something's going to happen eventually. That dog is going to be put in an uncomfortable situation, and it might bite somebody. It might be more reactive. You're going to have to realize that when you walk them, there's going to be reactivity. You're going to have to you're going to have to live that life, because although our Best Chance program, we are focusing on their training, 90% of the training is done with the foster, whoever it is. Like right now we have Jamie, who is absolutely amazing. She's one of our regular fosters. And although the dogs that she's fostering is going to day camp, she's going through it at home with them like 90% of the time. She's the one who's going to have to reinforce the crate, place, boundaries. She's doing all the work. But then what is the result of that? The dog comes out of that foster period, adopted in a great family. The family understands them. They're way ahead from what they're used to be when they first started fostering with her. But all because she put in the work. The trainers are not fixing that dog.
Now, I don't even know if I have ever told you this. I used to have a rule that I would never work with dogs that were fosters, right? Because I didn't see the point in getting that dog, quote unquote, trained if it was then going to go and get adopted by somebody I had never met, and those people were not going to put the same rules and boundaries in. The difference with our Best Chance program is that we are, one, training, but also evaluating that dog, right? That's kind of the majority of it is, with Sue, it was, okay, this dog does get along with other dogs. And we had her not just gets along with another dog and it was the only other dog in the house. We had her with different dogs every single day. Every single one of our Best Chance dogs, they are around different dogs. I mean, the majority of the week, right? When they're at day camp. But it's to make sure that we can find the right home that fits for them, but also to make sure that these owners that will come and adopt from us are willing to put that work in, because then you don't get the dog. I mean, we are setting the tone, but we don't expect that what we do in 30 days will solve every issue for the rest of that dog's life. That's just not how it works.
The conversations that I have with the people that want to adopt their dogs is basically me telling them everything that the baggage that dog's going to come with. Like when I talked to Dennis's mom, I told her, I said, okay, this is, just clarifying all the questions that she answered on the application. And I didn't say Dennis is super cute. He's so sweet. I said,
she says that to me.
I said, Dennis has experienced some issues with the crate. He has been crying through it. This is the problems that we've had. Are you able to follow through with that once you start? So I basically, if you're listening to it, it's going to sound like I don't want this dog adopted, because I'm pointing out all the things that are wrong with the dog. Not wrong, but the things they're going to have to work through. And I asked them, are you willing to go through and reinforce what the foster is now trying to reinforce, which is crate training, is a routine, it's boundaries. Are you okay with that? And she's like, yes, I'm fine. That's when we go to the second step, which is the meet and greet. But never have I talked to someone on the phone with our Best Chance program dogs and made them sound like angels, like they're just the absolutely most perfect dogs in the world. It's here's what we've realized this dog needs. Can you offer what we're trying to offer him right now for the rest of its life?
Yep.
And I think transparency is what's missing in a lot of the dog industry in general, whether it's training, adopting, whatever. And that's just so foundational for relationships in general, of that transparency part. So I think that, if you're not honest coming into a session with us about all these issues, we can't fix them. If we don't know what the issues are, I mean, we can assume as much, but there's a limited amount of things we can do without that transparency.
I think that's such a good point. I mean, we promise we're always going to be transparent with the people that are wanting to adopt dogs from us, but with our clients that are there just for a training session, our clients that have been there for years with us, we will always be transparent, but it won't matter if you are not transparent back with us. It won't matter if you're not being honest about where the dog sleeps, and come at it from a way of knowing that it's accepted, right? Knowing that we're not going to yell at you if the dog is on the couch, but we might say, hey, we've actually seen a lot more anxiety in camp lately. That might be why, now all of a sudden we have this privilege at the house that maybe the dog doesn't know what to do with, and that's spilling over in day camp. But just transparency both ways is huge, huge.
And kind of going back to like my dog's a baby and just like my dog's my baby rather. I think
my dog is a baby actually. So
I think a lot of people,
he's a very long baby.
It's extended baby.
Yes, he's extended.
But I think that's kind of where we like separate ourselves as trainers is I'm not comparing myself to these dogs. I do it, but in a way that's progressive and not that's just giving excuses to my dog.
That is so true. How many times do I ever say Kemper's my best friend?
All the time.
But that's because I make sure to treat him like a good friend, and I expect him to treat me like a good friend as well. Mm-hmm. Like we do the same thing. I truly believe like I care about my dogs like they are my children. I don't have children, so I assume that this is what it feels like. But I mean, that dog is my best friend. I mean, we truly feel like all of our dogs are our friends, but we have expectations of our friends. I wouldn't let him treat me like, lunge at me and try to punch me in the face and still be like, we're best friends. Like, that's just not a thing. And it's being transparent with your dog too, if you really think about it, right? Yeah. I mean, Connor is my friend, but he is also technically my employee, right? But if he does something that I don't like, we have a good enough of a relationship for me to bring that to him, and I can trust that it's received. It will be received well, just like he can trust that it will be given well, right? I'm not going to say it in a mean way. I'm not going to yell at him. I'm not going to pop off at him in front of the rest of the team. I might, but it won't be a real thing. But just like, I mean, you coming to us saying he's just being protective, or what Andreia said to me literally 10 minutes ago, which was he just wanted to say hi to you, right? That shows that you're not being transparent with your dog because you are trying to cover up an issue to me, the person who is supposed to be here to solve the issue with the dog. Yeah. So you have a better relationship with your dog if you can bring issues to them and say, hey, I don't like that you do this because I actually consider this pretty rude. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't let anybody else do this to me, or this is a toxic behavior. I wouldn't let anybody else follow my every move in the house. So trust that that's going to be received, but also have your dog trust that it will be enforced as well.
Well, this other saying that you put in here too.
Okay. I'm just going to close this and let you. Okay.
No, because I want to point out the good ones that.
What are the bad ones?
Not the good ones, but the ones that I really think a lot of people have, I think brings a lot of people together, in this. Unites us all in this episode.
This is the best way you could have said that.
That's really a nice way of saying that.
So this is, I don't use the crate. He's fine out of the house, just super anxious and fearful when we go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client literally tell me, we're not crate training. It has nothing to do with my dog's leash reactivity. Okay. Well, your dog is not used to being given a boundary by you. Mm-hmm. So if that's not something that you can do with your dog inside your house when there are no triggers, how do you expect to be able to do that with your dog when you're outside of your house and your dog thinks that it might be a life or death scenario?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think with the crate, especially when we're not having issues with the crate and we're just letting our dog free roam all day, they're always viewing their current situation as a job. Whatever it is it's a job to them. So it's always confusing to me as to why you wouldn't give them a job clearly, and instead you just let them make choices
or let them clock out from a job. Yeah. That's the big thing, is that people go, oh, well, they like the freedom of being out in my house. Do they, if they're barking at every single dog that they see out the window and they're spending all day staring out the window? That's another thing that should be on the list, is they love looking out the window. Do they, or are they on guard?
Did they tell you?
Yeah. Is your dog sunbathing in the window completely fast asleep? Because then, they love being in the window. But if your dog is staring at every single thing that they see outside, like a leaf falling on the ground or whatever, and then just completely kicking off, then that's not a dog who's enjoying that. But I think with the crate, the two other things that I run into is they don't destroy the house, so they don't need the crate. Well, the crate's not for you. Okay. That's like saying, she will sleep on the couch, so she doesn't need a bedroom. No, let me have a space that's mine. And then 2, it's more, my dog loved the crate, no longer needs it, so we got rid of it. Well, if your dog loves it, why would you get rid of something that your dog loves? If your dog enjoys the crate, keep the crate. That is the most, like I have said that to a client of like, why would you stop doing something that your dog enjoyed? If your dog truly loved and like went there on their own, slept there, chose to be there, keep the crate. Let them have that space.
This one too said they'll grow out of it.
Oh, I get that a lot for puppies. They're going to grow out of this, right? Or they're going to grow into this.
Just get bigger, stronger, and better at the current thing they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, there are phases that puppies will go through. Like, they're more likely to mouth at certain, when they're teething. And there are absolutely things that I do not take as seriously when it's a, 4-month-old puppy. But that doesn't mean I don't address it. That doesn't mean I just let it ride. It means that, okay, now is my time to start, ensuring that my dog sees me as somebody who offers direction to them. So then that way, when they are 90 pounds and doing this, that's something familiar to them for me to tell them, hey, maybe we don't do that anymore. And they listen.
This one, I think I said this one.
Oh God. Oh no.
They only behave well here. They won't do this at home.
Oh,
listen,
man.
If you said this, I'm with you. Okay. Because with Max, our doodle, he is so amazing at day camp, right? He is awesome. Like he's a superstar. And if I slip here, or if I like, especially when we're playing fetch, because that's his thing. That was our initial problem, was that I was a fetch instrument and he only viewed me as that and not like a human or a person. I was just like this automatic like fetch throwing.
Can we get her a shirt that says fetch instrument? Oh, I forgot about that.
He was never like a bad, like not even, we didn't have like an issue specifically to pinpoint, like other than.
You had a lot of issues.
I did, but it wasn't like, okay, Bubbles issues. Like, oh, this is serious. Like I need to fix, like I need to do something about this.
Max's issues
Were
created Bubbles issues. Yeah.
So later we put everything together. Like we mapped it out and like pinpoint things together. But Max, he is absolutely like a superstar at camp. And when we get here, if there is a moment where Ozzy or myself, we're throwing the ball for him, if we don't do it the right way, like if we don't have him give us eye contact, if we don't ask for respect, he will switch. He will become extremely disrespectful just like that. And everything he has learned at camp goes out the window. Like he starts to jump on us. He starts to try to get the ball out of my hand. Ozzy's brother was in town a week ago or whatever, but they were here and we were outside and we were throwing the ball and they were just throwing the ball. And then Max, I just noticed Max like turn into this monster, just come out and just like.
He turned into the Hulk?
He was just like transforming before my eyes. And he started to get crazy. Like he would try to get the ball out of his hand. He would jump on top of him. Like he was doing a ton of disrespectful things. And then I was like, all right, you know what? I reminded myself what I needed to. I didn't scream at him. I went inside, got the lead, put it on him, and took the ball from him and just had him sit right there, like not next to me, but off to the side and watch the other dogs run.
I have never been more proud of you.
I was like, let me just have him watch all the things that are going on. Millie came into my shoulder like as a little angel.
You finally made it on the shoulder,
this
right?
is what you have to do.
Yeah, Connor says that I'm the devil and Sarah's the angel on his shoulder. So I don't know what that means, but
They can flip flop depending on the situation.
Millie just came to my shoulder and told me what to do at that moment. And honestly, like we did that for like 10 minutes and he watched all the dogs. Like it was hard for him. Then we did it again with the fetch. And I told his brother, I'm like, hey, make sure that you ask, like you wait until he looks into your eyes and then you throw it. Don't throw it if he barks or if he tries to lunge at you or whatever. So he listened to me. Max, totally fine. We had a great time. When I called him back, he went in. There was no problem. He calmed down. He started to really shift. So it's a matter of realizing like what's wrong at that moment. And because dogs change, like I said, Max is perfect at day camp.
Yeah.
He's been doing this for a year now,
Yeah,
right?
he's one of the dogs we don't have to worry about at all.
And then if we accept bad behavior, because he still knows the bad behaviors, it's still there, it's not that it's gone away, but if we don't correct it or if we don't like realize it, he immediately turns into a different dog,
And that's something I struggle with as a trainer myself of, hey, someone's coming into the center and they're doing all fine and dandy, doing everything I'm asking. And I struggle saying, like, not blaming the situation. But we just got back from a workshop. Sherry Wolf Lucas held Learn to Lead in Knoxville. But something that she said that really stuck with me is that blaming that scenario, it sabotages the progress and your own self-talk, which is like the two most important things to me personally about dog training. It is what it's allowed me to believe in myself and just my ability to progress in life. And those always blaming external things instead of the changes that you made yourself and the changes you made in the situation itself really takes away from, hey, he's doing it. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like this is whether it's walking on a leash, doing place work, chilling out in the crate, he's doing it and he understands it. So that's something you can take wherever you want to take it if you believe in it.
It's like the lack of vulnerability of, they're just being protective or they just want to say hi gets carried over to when we see success. Oh, well, it can't be true success, right? They'll only, it's not even that I started getting that when we opened the center. I used to get that all the time when I would go into in-home sessions and people would go, oh, well, Millie's here. They're going to be perfect angels now. No, they're perfect because you're doing something different because you're afraid of what I'm going to say if you don't, right? I mean, you're giving different information. So the dog is responding differently. It has nothing to do with where you are, who's there. It has everything to do with what you are asking of them. Now, if, people need to have little Millies on their shoulders I like to think to scare people into doing the thing that their dog needs them to do. But apparently I'm a nicer version of that on Andrea's shoulder. But it's more like if you need to have that in your head, fine. But I take that so seriously when I walk or I hand Kemper off or another dog off to a person walking their very dog reactive dog, they're going to go, okay, well, this is only here. They're not reacting because it's here or it's your dog or it's Kemper or, whatever the case may be. I make sure I stop people in their tracks and I go, this is not a fluke. You did this. You created this because you gave them different information.
It's all about the information that we give our dogs, and it shifts their whole behavior. They turn into different dogs. Like they want that information so badly from you. They want direction. They want guidance. I was out of town for about a week and a half, and I wasn't with, Bubbles started to get a little bit of like anxious, he starts to get a little anxious. And when I came home, I noticed that he was kind of uneasy. Like he was a little bit too hyper. I don't know how to describe it. Like I could tell he needed
amped.
A little bit too
Was that
amped.
while he was with me?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was like,
it was
my
when
God.
he was, when he came back from being with you, he was an angel.
Okay, good. Okay.
He was I called him once, Bubbles, he would be right
so
there.
Good.
He spent about 5 days with Millie, and he went to day camp every day. He was like a sleepover, he was sleeping over.
We both wore matching pajamas and had pillow fights. It was really fun.
But he enjoyed every second of it because Millie was like, he's just clicking. He's with me. He's in sync with me. Like I don't need to give him a lot of guidance because he just knows what I'm expecting of him. He's doing great, and Bubbles is the type of dog that he loves direction. So when I came home and I noticed he was a little bit more amped, I put a lead on him and we went around the yard and started, just walking, doing like the structured walk, just really took the time to just be with him and just walk around for about 15 minutes. And he just came down.
He does
his
not
energy.
take much.
He did so great. I mean, after that, he went in the crate. He wasn't barking in the crate. He wasn't amped. He just laid down. He took that time to relax. And that changed his whole behavior. That 15-minute structured walk around the yard changed his behavior. That's the information he needed from me at that time, is that I was here, I'm back, I'm able to guide you, I'm able to give you information. You don't need to worry about anything else. I'm here. And that was our communication. I didn't sit there and just try to cuddle him and pet him. He doesn't like that. He doesn't want that. He wanted guidance from me.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is people think that comforting them, the dog, is going to make them feel better. And most of the time that just confuses them more. I mean, and it doesn't solve anything. I used to have a saying of, you can feel better, you can get better. I would rather make sure that my dog gets better rather than just feels better for that moment. I'm not saying that if you would have gone home and pet him, that he wouldn't have enjoyed that. I'm sure he would have, but that wouldn't have made him get better, right? Yeah. He would have still been amped when you put him back in the crate. So that's where the whole, they just want to say hi doesn't really matter, right? Because once they say hi and they're calm, fine, but then that doesn't solve it the next time that they maybe can't go say hi.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And just one more thing I was going to add on, actually, from the workshop as well, of you mentioned even Bubbles just asking for that direction. And something that stuck out is a lot of times our older dogs, people don't think, you know, they've gotten stuck in their ways. They're good to go. Or old dog can't learn new tricks, whatever it may be. But the frustration and the behaviors you're dealing with in that moment is your dog screaming for relief, right? And when you finally have a meaningful conversation with your dog, it's just like that relief has been filled. And I just want to bring that up for it doesn't matter the age, whatever it is. Your dog wants that direction.
That's one of the things on this list is they're so smart. I knew they would get this really quickly. And I'm like, okay, I'm not saying your dog's not smart, right? I promise you. I'm not saying your dog's not smart, but it's more your dog is clicking with this, and your dog is going to place on their own and going now into the crate on their own, because this is what they were searching for this entire time. Now, I have been known to say that in a new client session, that your dog is going to go home and they're going to do everything in their power to convince you that I do not know what I am talking about, because of course there's going to be pushback. But most of the time, once you get through that hump, like, you're going to get a dog who's like, oh, thank God. And that doesn't mean that they're smart, they're dumb, they're whatever. It just means that this is what was needed.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we covered a lot in this episode. Do you guys want to add anything else?
Good.
No? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you enjoy our podcast, please make sure to leave us a review. We really appreciate your feedback. And also, if you have any questions or, anything that you want to share with us, you can either email us at info@thinklikeadogpodcast.com, or you can go to our Instagram and stay updated on there. The day before we record, we drop a question box there that you can drop all your questions, and we try to cover those during the episodes. So thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget,
practice makes progress.
All right. Until next time.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Think Like a Dog Podcast, and follow at Mirror Image Canine for training tips. If you have any questions, please reach out to us via email at info@thinklikeadogpodcast.com.